Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to demystify something we use every single second but might not fully understand: electricity. We'll break it down into simple, easy to grasp concepts. By the end of this video, you'll see how everything from your phone charger to a giant power plant works on the same basic principles. Let's get started. First up, what even is electricity? At its core, electricity is simply the movement of tiny electric charges. In most things we use, like the wires in our walls, these charges are electrons moving through a conductor, like copper. A great way to visualize this is to think of water flowing through a pipe. The water molecules are like the electric charges, the pipe is like the wire, and the flow of water is the electric current. So, remember this key idea. Electricity only exists when these charges are moving. No movement, no electricity. So, if electricity is moving charges, what is electric current? Electric current is the speed or rate at which those charges flow. We define it as the amount of charge that passes a point in 1 second. The unit we use to measure current is the ampere, or amp for short. To give you some real-world context, a typical mobile phone charger might draw about 2 amps of current, while a ceiling fan uses around half an amp to 1 amp. Going back to our water analogy, a higher current is like more water flowing through the pipe every second. More flow, higher current. Simple as that. Now, before charges can even move, there needs to be something that has the potential asterisk to make them move. This is called electric potential. It's like stored energy, ready and waiting to do work. Think of a fully charged battery. It's not doing anything yet, but it has the potential to power your device. Or imagine a large dam holding back a massive amount of water. The water isn't flowing, but it has immense potential energy because of its height. Electric potential is that stored ability to move charges, and it exists even when no current is flowing. This brings us to one of the most familiar terms, voltage. Voltage is officially called potential difference. It's the difference in electric potential between 2 points. This difference is what actually pushes the electrons and makes them move, creating a current. The unit for voltage is the volt. For example, a standard AA battery has a voltage of 1.5 volts. Your phone charger typically provides 5 volts, and the power outlet in your home supplies around 130 volts. In our water analogy, voltage is like the height difference between two connected water tanks. The greater the height difference, the stronger the push, and the faster the water flows. Higher voltage means a bigger push for the electrons. So, we have voltage pushing charges, creating a current. What happens next? This is where electricity does work. When those charges move because of voltage, they transfer energy. This transfer of energy is called electric work. This is the magic that makes things happen. When you turn on a fan, electrical energy is converted into mechanical work to spin the blades. When you use a hot iron, it's converted into thermal work, or heat. And when you light up a bulb, it becomes light energy. Electricity, in essence, is energy in action, doing all sorts of useful jobs for us. Now, how fast does electricity do this work? That's where electric power comes in. Electric power is the rate at which electrical work is done, or how fast energy is being used. We measure power in watts. You've seen this on your appliances all the time. The formula is simple. Power equals voltage times current. An LED bulb might use just 9 watts, a clothes iron might use 1,000 watts, and a powerful air conditioner can use up to 2,500 watts. So, a higher power rating means the appliance consumes energy much faster to do its job. If power is how fast we use energy, what's the total amount we use over time? That's called electric energy. This is what you actually pay for on your electricity bill. The common unit for electric energy is the watt-hour, or, more commonly, the kilowatt-hour, which is 1,000 watt-hours. Your electricity bill measures consumption in units, where 1 unit is exactly 1 kilowatt-hour. For instance, if you run a 1,000-watt appliance, like that iron, for 1 full hour, you will have used exactly 1 unit of electricity. But what stops the current from flowing uncontrollably? The answer is resistance. Resistance is the opposition to the flow of current. Every material has some resistance. We measure it in ohms. Several factors affect resistance. Like the material itself, copper has low resistance, which is why we use it for wires the length of the wire, its thickness, and even its temperature. For example, a thin wire has more resistance than a thick one. A heater element is designed to have very high resistance, which is how it generates so much heat. In our water analogy, resistance is like a narrow section of the pipe that restricts the water flow. Next, let's talk about storing charge. This is the job of capacitance. Capacitance is the ability of a component to store electric charge. The device that does this is called a capacitor, and we measure its ability in farads. Capacitors are like tiny, temporary batteries. They can store energy and then release it very quickly when needed. You find them everywhere. They create the bright flash in a camera. They help smooth out the power supply in your electronics, and they can provide temporary backup power. Think of a capacitor as a small water tank that can fill up and then be emptied quickly. On the flip side, we have inductance, while capacitance deals with storing charge. Inductance deals with opposing any change in the current. It's a property that resists sudden increases or decreases in current flow. The components that do this are called inductors, and their property is measured in a unit called the Henry. Inductors store energy, but they do it in a magnetic field. They are crucial for stabilizing current in circuits. You'll find them in electric motors, transformers, and the chokes used in old fluorescent lights and modern power supplies. A good analogy is a heavy water wheel. It takes effort to get it spinning, but once it's going, it resists any attempt to suddenly stop or speed it up. So, where does all this electricity come from? We have two main types of sources. The first is a voltage source. A voltage source is designed to maintain a constant voltage, no matter how much current is being drawn from it, within its limits, of course. The voltage is fixed, and the current varies based on what's connected to it. Classic examples are batteries, power generators, and the power supply unit in your computer. The second type is a current source. As you might guess, a current source does the opposite. It maintains a constant current, regardless of what the voltage needs to be to make that happen. In this case, the current is fixed, and the voltage adjusts. These are a bit more specialized but are essential for things like driving LEDs, which require a stable current to work properly, and in certain types of transistor circuits. Alright, let's put it all together now for the big picture. Imagine a complete electrical system. It all starts with a source, like a battery, which provides a voltage. This voltage, or potential difference, creates a push. This push causes a current, which is the flow of electric charges, to move through a circuit. Along the way, the current encounters resistance, which limits how much can flow. As the current flows through components, it does work, and the power tells us how fast that energy is being used. The total electric energy is what we measure and pay for over time. Finally, components like capacitors and inductors help manage the flow, storing energy and stabilizing the current. From the simplest flashlight to the complex national power grid, these are the fundamental concepts that govern how all electrical systems work. Understanding this relationship is the key to understanding the technology that powers our world. I hope this breakdown made electricity a little less mysterious and a lot more interesting. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more content that makes complex topics simple. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.